My freshman year of college was very different from a normal year. I was at home taking all my classes online. And when I tell some people that, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." But I answer with, "It was the best thing for me." And it really was. I took it as an opportunity to pursue my education and work a full-time job at a restaurant. I made the best of the situation that I had and worked my way up all the way to assistant general manager of that restaurant. And the experience that I gained from my freshman year changed my life completely, and it was not planned at all, which is the best part. I didn't have the intention of doing it, and quite honestly, without it, I would not be in front of you all today. I was undecided my freshman year, and to some extent, I still am. But now I know I want to pursue a career in business. I believe that everyone has their own path ahead of them to achieve their success. And we all must know deep down, no matter the twists and turns of that path, you will get there. Today, you will hear from these four women and more about their pathways filled with experiences that led them to their success today. Now, without further ado, may I introduce Christina Roth, Judy Vina, Letitia Amuo, and Christina Gondolfo. Now, I would like the panelists to introduce themselves. If Christina R., you would like to start us off?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you all for taking the time to stay here this afternoon. My name is Christina Roth. I am the Chief Executive Officer and founder of the College Diabetes Network, a national nonprofit that supports young adults living with diabetes. I graduated from UMass back in 2011 from the School of Psychology. And I have had various jobs across diabetes since graduating, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Hi, my name is Judy Vina, and I'm the CEO of Specialized Career Guidance, located in Massachusetts. I'm in my fourth year of starting this business, and it helps create the infrastructure for career pathways and workforce development for recruitment and retention of entry-level talent from high school and from college. And I've had many different paths that we'll be talking about, and I'm so excited to be here. I graduated from UMass in 1989 from Hotel, Restaurant, and Travel Administration. And I'm a member of the Women for UMass Amherst, and I love this conference. So thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Letitia Amuo. I am a program coordinator for the City of Worcester's Division of Youth. I graduated from UMass Amherst with a degree in psychology. I got a double minor in Afro-American Studies and Women and Gender Sexuality in 2012. I am excited to be here. This is my second year speaking for the women of, or with the women of Isenberg. And I began my career in education, but we're going to get into that. So thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is very exciting. I'm Christina Gandolfo. I'm the Executive Director of Estimating and Pricing in Raytheon Intelligence and Space. Raytheon Intelligence and Space is one of the businesses for RTX, who I think is a corporate sponsor here. I graduated from UMass in 2004, and I have had my own interesting career path, predominantly in the defense industry, and I'm really looking forward to share a little bit of that with you, and hopefully have an opportunity to answer some questions and connect with folks after.
Great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And thank you everyone for being here. I am so excited to get started. I'm going to start with our first question, which is directed towards all of our panelists. After graduating, where did you see yourself in the future? Are you where you thought you'd be? If not, what has changed? And if Judy, you would like to start us off, and then we'll have Christina G, Letitia, and Christina R proceed after her.
Thank you so much. So when I graduated, I had just finished a co-op in the hotel industry, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought I would work for this major hotel chain, and I would travel the world opening hotels all over. I thought it would be just fantastic fit for my skill set and my interest. But instead, I chose a different path, and I decided that I would get married and follow, instead of my dream job, my dream husband. And I moved to upstate New York. So outside of, my UMass network. And this was a time, 1989, this is a long time ago. There was no technology where you could just, connect with people. So I had to really figure out a new way to network. And I did. I was very disciplined, and I asked people for help. That's my number one thing. I would say is so important to ask questions. When you need help, reach out. There's always someone that's going to be available to help you. And I got my first job in sales, and the gentleman was really dedicated to teaching me those skills. And I would say it was quite interesting how many times I had to move in the first 5 years following my husband's career. And it was challenging, but I ended up in the travel industry. And I'm very much an entrepreneur, and I've always been an entrepreneur, and I just didn't know it. So I became what I would like to call an intrapreneur. So I would work for companies, and I would develop new divisions that I thought they needed. And these were all for small businesses. And it was so fun, and it was just so exciting. And then when I had children, I decided to step back from the workforce in a formalized way. And I went into professional level volunteering and building the infrastructure within different organizations until I have now pivoted. My children are 23 and 25, and I created my own business. So that's it in a nutshell. The next questions, I can go into deeper parts of that.
So after graduating, where did I see myself in the future? So when I was at UMass, I never did an internship, and I'm still in awe when I speak with recent graduates in the last, I would say, 10 years, and the amount of work that you all do to understand kind of where you want to be during your college experience. I didn't do that. I grew up in a family. We owned our own restaurant, and that's where I lived, right? So if I wasn't at school, that's where I was. And so when I got a job with Raytheon, straight out of school, I got into the leadership development program for their contracts discipline. And it was kind of learning by fire, because you don't learn contracts in college. It is not, you take one class, you understand the four corners, that's it. And so as I proceeded along in that environment and through that program, I really started to figure out where my fit was. And, if I look back then to think where I am now, about 17 years later, yes, I am where I thought I would be in terms of how I've advanced in the company, the experiences that I've had. Everything that they told me has truly actually come to fruition, because I made it happen, right? We walked into that organization, into that leadership development program, hearing you are going to be the future leaders of this company. I am currently, L3 from the CEO. And if you think the size of Raytheon, I work for a $15 billion business, which is part of a $85 billion business. So, I'm probably where I thought I'd be. And there's been a lot of change, and experiences have happened from there to here. And I'm really excited to share some of that with you.
Thank you, Christina. For myself, am I where I thought I was going to be after graduating? No, I feel like part of the work that I do now is that I work with youth. And so I have a 2-tier program. And so half of that program is we provide activities, out of school time activities and programming for youth 7 to 13 years old throughout the city of Worcester. That's for free. And then the other tier is that we employ and hire youth so they can get exposure to youth justice work and youth work. And so part of my work is to expose them to multiple careers, because usually folks don't say, I want to be a program coordinator when I grow up. Or when you think of working for the government, it usually isn't about, getting marker exploded all over your face, which is what happened when I ran February break vacation throughout the week. And so when I was in the psychology program, I was a teaching assistant, I was a research assistant, especially social psychology. I absolutely loved it. And so being a teaching assistant in Psych 101, I was afforded the opportunity to do that as a sophomore in college. And so I led my own seminar. And I remember one of the students there who were my peers saying, you'd be a really good like preschool teacher. I was like, that's interesting. And I remember leaving college, not having a job lined up. I had gone to a job for canvassing. And I remember they were saying, yeah, if you get into a car accident while you're driving around for us, that's on you. I was like, oh, so I didn't return after lunchtime. But what I did go is into AmeriCorps Fellowship for teaching in New Bedford. And that started my career in education. And as I went through that career from New Bedford and then going to Boston, I realized that there was a lot of need for equity in youth justice work. And so I moved into larger policy work for out of school time. And now I'm here working for the government for my hometown of Worcester. And so again, the question in saying that, I guess the second part, are you where you thought it'd be? No. If not, what has changed? What has changed is that I was open to learning and growing. And so as I saw the gaps in my passion of youth work and youth justice work, I would always carry around on my laptop when I was teaching, be the change you wish to see. And so in working in this larger government work, I feel as though I'm fulfilling that mantra by being the change I wish to see. Thank you.
All right. I had enjoyed all of the prep calls with this panel as well. So it's a pleasure to get to hear everybody's stories again. For me, I graduated from the School of Psychology, and I did my thesis in resiliency and positive attributes in adopted adolescents. And so I really resonated with the concept of resiliency and in really challenging life situations. And having lived with diabetes myself since I was 14, the combination of those life experiences and finding the good in it and being able to overcome that was just something that was very powerful for me. So along with doing my thesis, I also did a second thesis looking at that in the type 1 youth population. So I was convinced that I would be going into clinical psychology. And it was really my plan to become a research assistant and go into a PhD program almost immediately. And I knew exactly what tracks, I knew exactly the researchers in the space and who I wanted to work with. And it was very clear to me. There was no doubts whatsoever. And I was very lucky that I got a research assistant job right out of school, working for the Joslin Diabetes Center under one of the most incredible women in the space, researchers in the space in general. And I realized pretty quickly that I liked making a difference. I liked knowing the space, but during school, as I did my thesis, I had started this nonprofit on the side. It was more of a concept. It was getting to just connect with peers. And so as I graduated, that really became a second volunteer job. And I found myself being able to influence and impact a large number of people that would never have been reached otherwise. So while I enjoyed what I was doing in the research space and I was surrounded by very smart and talented individuals, it was very contained and there wasn't a lot of creative thinking. And I found that when my 5 to 10 job where I was volunteering, I got to build relationships with really passionate, dedicated, creative thinkers. And I got to solve problems and I got to just really learn all the time. And that just fired me up. And I found myself enjoying my job, but being fired up when I was working on this organization. And so within about a year and a half of graduating, I actually gave notice and left my full-time amazing job and became a full-time volunteer for this nonprofit that was getting off the ground. And we had 2 full-time staff as of the beginning of 2012. And I now oversee a staff of about 13. We work with over 3,000 students across the US actively, and have worked with almost 350 or so campuses as well. So, and are currently going through a major rebranding. So the experiences that I've gotten to have every 2 to 3 years, it has been a new organization, it's new problems and challenges. But the through line for all of that, I think, is really being able to make an enormous difference in people's lives, but being able to be surrounded by and work with individuals that are like-minded and creative and passionate and dedicated. And I find that that, for me, drives so much of what I'm able to do and just brings out the best in me. And so I think that that environment for me made a really big difference. And I never thought I would be in this space whatsoever. But I enjoy it most days, I should say. And happy to answer other questions, and I'm sure we'll get into other details later.
That was great. I loved hearing about everyone's pathways. This question is for Christina R., Letitia, and Judy. Have there been any obstacles you have faced or sacrifices you have made in your career path that were significantly difficult, but in the end made you stronger? Christina, if you wanted to go first, and then Judy and Letitia, if you would follow.
Sure. So when we were prepping in this call and this question came up, a lot of different things occurred to me. But the one that really stood out that we ended up talking about was in 2012, just after I'd made the decision to give notice and leave my job, and I'd done so. I was in my last 2 weeks of transitioning, working with them to become my full-time volunteer for this organization that was taking off. And my very, very good friend and cousin, who was my same age, we'd grown up together, passed away very, very unexpectedly. She had become addicted to opioids from an injury and experience in life. And losing her was devastating. And losing her right at that point in time was chilling. And it was very hard. And then leaving the work environment, going into an office, being surrounded by people, and then suddenly having this wide open canvas that I was completely in charge of was overwhelming, because these feelings were so overwhelming. And I really found that being able to throw myself into work that I knew would make a difference elsewhere and be able to really just immerse myself in it was so cathartic. And in my last few weeks at working in the research department, it was fine and it kept me busy, but it wasn't all encompassing and it wasn't cathartic in any way. And I found that really building this organization on the side was something that kept me going at the time. And so I think that for me, in retrospect, had really just helped to reinforce the fact that I was making the right decision and that I was on the right path, because inevitably terrible things are going to happen in life. And so being able to hold on to something that you know is being true to yourself was something that gave me a lot of peace at the time. And in retrospect, is something that I'm just very, very grateful for.
Thank you for sharing. I would say that, so in college, my last year, my grandmother, who is my favorite grandmother, my maternal grandmother, I received her first name as my middle name. And she was terminally ill with cancer. And so I had a conversation with all of my professors at the time to say, hey, this is what's going on. Of course, we don't know when her exact homegoing will be, but I may have to leave at some point to be there with her, with my family. And so when that moment did come, I remember I used to do work with the Stonewall Center, and they had like the rainbow graduation. And I was like, yeah, I won't be able to be there, but I would love for my name to still be called. Um, and telling my professors, like, this week I will be unavailable because her time has come. And later in life, I felt like that gave me the strength to share with stakeholders in my work, allies in my progress and my passion, to be aware when I get into hard times. And so uh, just last year, I parted ways from my life partner, my husband, with a baby under one. And um, to be able to say to my boss, to other colleagues that I work closely with, like, hey, this is an obstacle. This is a hard time that I am going through, expecting to, who knows how long the hardship or the pain will last for, but I want to give you a heads up about it, right? And I would say that for both instances, although very different, my grandmother transitioning into the afterlife and me transitioning from someone who I expected to be my life partner forever, knowing that there was joy on the other side. For my grandmother, she would have no more suffering. For my situation, I knew that I would be free and happy, um, and safe and peaceful, as with my young daughter, to make that step. And so I would say, although we all go through obstacles, and I guess I've read a lot of message boards that have reminded me that living is not having 100% joy and bliss. Living is feeling. And in the different times that we feel all the different feels, I want to encourage everyone, as I am currently doing, to make yourself the main character in your story. Um, and so that's where I'm at. Let me make sure I answered the whole question. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at, where it did make me stronger. And I want to share with you, especially as folks who identify as women on here, that making the step and choosing joy and peace will inevitably make you all stronger. So thank you.
I think that was very kind and brave of Christina and Letitia to share those stories. And I would agree with both of you. I think in our lives, we will all have hardship, and it's how we travel through that. So, and it looks different to everyone. So, moving a lot when I was young from UMass and not having a network, I had never stayed by myself. I moved to a new city. My husband worked 120 hours. I didn't know, I didn't have the wisdom or a mentor that said, you can have this career and travel around the United States. At the same time, you can be married. I didn't know that I could, with the right support, have had both of those things. So I had to really dig deep in myself to say, you can do this. You can get a job. You can have, we didn't have Women of Isenberg conference, but I was as involved as the individuals who run the Women of Isenberg. So I came from, being very involved to basically silence, having no network, having no family near me, and I needed to navigate that. So that was a very pivotal point. And I said to myself, I can do this. And my mother said, you can do this. And I did. And then, I got to the point was I was loving my job and oh, it was time to move again. And I'm like, oh no, I have to start this again. But each time it was easier. Each time I was able to do it. And then when I had children, I had to make that decision. Did I want to stay in the workforce? And when I had my first child, I said yes. And I was able to do remote work. And back then, that was really not a thing. And I loved it. And then I had my son, and he had health challenges, and I'm like, I can't do all of this. I can do all of it, but not at the same time. So I moved to volunteering at a very professional level so that I could keep my skill set up and I could take care of myself, because I needed that interaction. I needed to make profound impact. And I didn't know that about myself, but that's really what I needed. I needed to make profound impact. I needed to be a collaborator. I needed to build partnerships and bridges and help everyone have the ability to be their best self. And I could do that through all my different volunteer professional level work and move in and out of whatever was needed in my family without the pressure to be there as a job. But then, and I also would say gratitude is a very important thing, to be grateful every day. So no matter what's coming at you, if you can be grateful through those times, you can move to the next step, because there's so much to be grateful for. And then when it was time to say, well, I don't have that role as a mother in the way that I was needed, I said, it's time for me. And I was very brave and I started my own business. And I think really honoring who you are and where you are and asking people for help helps you through all of those big transitions.
Thank you all for being so vulnerable with that question. Our next one is going to be for Letitia and Christina G. If you went back to college, would you have changed your major or career path with the knowledge and experience you have now? Christina G, if you would like to kick it off for us, and then Letitia.
Sure. I'll say when I was in Isenberg back in the early 2000s, I was very undecided. I mean, even, I got to that point where I had to select my major and it was management. And that was pretty broad. It was like, what do I do with this? And I actually remember it was one of my first classes, I'd say junior year, going into, I think it was an accounting class, and I was sitting with someone who I'd known since high school because I'm from Massachusetts. So a lot of folks that I graduated with were all still in ISOM with me. And he actually said to me, he's like, did you really pick management? No, like, yes, yeah, that's what I'm going to major. He's like, you really won't be able to do much with that. I mean, he actually said that to me, and I actually see him today pretty regularly. And I do remind him that he said that to me. So, I went into a bit of a tailspin and a panic. I'm not going to lie at that point, because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I really going to do? And, in part, I went with management because I liked the aspect of, hey, this can open a lot of different doors. This is the basics. This is the foundation. And with this, I can go and really figure out what my career and my professional life looks like, right? Because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do yet. And, when I think about my career path, which going into Raytheon, focusing on contracts, which, to a lot of you, you might think contracts and say, wow, that's legal. So are you a lawyer? I am not a lawyer. I'm not a JD. I did not go back to law school. I am actually, prior to my finance role, it's the forward-facing function of the business. We sell, we execute, we manage change within program execution. So basically, my that management foundation set the tone for my career and my success in this, what I would say to be, a broad profession. So I guess I could say I always I look for the opportunities that create a foundational jump off point for me. And I say that because I'm still undecided. I'm still trying to figure out what the next steps are for my career. And I've been appreciative of that. So I wouldn't change it. Now, what I will say is, as you proceed forward, in your professional life and your personal life, you'll identify new areas where you might be good at something, things that you have opportunities to participate in that you begin to develop, whether you consider it a hobby or you want to choose that as a career path. And for me, what I have found in the last 10 years as I've been, now a homeowner, and have friends that have become homeowners, I'm actually very good at interior design. Who knew? Wasn't something I ever knew when I was 20 something, because you're living in a box and what are you doing? You don't really have to decorate it, right? You're coming and going and that's it. There are times where I even say now, is this a good opportunity for me to go back to school and actually do this for a living? Because I take a lot of joy from it. It is something I do, and I don't do it for any type of financial, gain. I just have friends that I'll be sitting here at 10 o'clock at night. I get a text that says, "Can you just do this room for me, just virtually? Can you just make this happen?" And there's part of me that would love to go back and do that. But as of right now, what I enjoy, and I think we as where we are in the world of technology and advancement, you can do all of that. You can have multiple careers at the same time. You don't have to look backwards and say, but if I had done it then, you can still do it now. And that's really where, we've learned so much in the last 2 years with Zoom, and being able to do these online classes are different. It's a total different environment, and it's created, opportunity that I didn't think existed for me. And I think it's only going to get better for everyone. So, I probably would not go back and change anything. I would just take advantage of the fact that and all the women here have just said that, you can change at any point. It doesn't, you can divert your path. And I think that's the knowledge and experience that I've learned in the last, I'd say in the last few years. And I'm really proud of the foundation and that element that management gave to me. Because had I gone down, I will say, had I gone down an accounting path, I work in finance now. I will say all the accountants, they were accounting majors, right? Most of them were accounting majors. They've done different things, but that's a profession that they have chosen, and they've stayed that course, and there hasn't been much, diversion into a supply chain or something different. Whereas I now can kind of go in a multitude of directions and have a lot of runway in front of me. So.
Thank you, Christina. I feel the word that Christina shared that is radiating in my mind is joy. I feel as though whenever you have joy or can find or carve out joy in what you do, it is so important, and it's something to hold on to. I personally believe in the butterfly effect. So I feel as though if I were to go back and change my major or my minors, or, the path or trajectory that I lined up for myself, so many things would be different. My best friend that I met in college is now my daughter's godfather. And my other really good friend, who was my neighbor my first year of college, we were in each other's weddings. And we now have, kids under 2. And the list goes on. I've made great friends from the school that I went to. And no matter which situation you are in life, you have the ability to do that. And so I say, just make the most out of the situation and the place that you are in. And so I think I saw this question in the chat as well. When do you know it's time to move? And I feel as though when you no longer feel joy in the place that you're in. And so when I was teaching in Boston for a little bit, I noticed that I started grinding my teeth at night. That is a manifestation of the stress that was happening. And I always say to people, I love kids. I loved middle school. I taught middle school for about 4 or 5 years at the beginning of my career. And it was always the adults, though. That is where the issue comes in. And there's just so much respect that I have for teachers, where there's constantly these, competitive ways and single-minded ways that we're teaching and producing data and results and standardized tests that does not fit for the multitude of beautiful souls that we have in front of us in the classroom. So I wanted to find ways to provide joy for youth outside of that. And so I went into out of school time work. And as I'm where I am right now, I remember in college, I was so terrified of math. I realized about 12th grade that I needed glasses because even though the physics teacher loved me, I always would miss those little lines and subscript and superscript. And that's really important in physics class and math classes. So thankfully, I passed all my other classes because I failed physics. But just ironically, I became a math teacher my first and second year. And so there's maybe some of y'all have gone through new math, Singapore math. That's what I started teaching at the beginning of my career. Um, and now I balance budgets that are for upwards of 1.6 million for the city of Worcester for my division. And I was scared doing it. I was like, ugh. And then I would put it off and procrastinate. And then once I got comfortable with, oh, there are formulas in Excel. This is so cool. And you're just able to finish, like, change the weeks from 9 weeks to 15 weeks. And Excel will tell you what it is and automatically. Um, and so now I do that. And there have been even larger scale positions that I've put myself out there for. The division or diversity and equity inclusion division and office for the city, because I feel like those are larger scale ways to find joy. But I have been very happy with the last 4 years providing jobs to youth of marginalized and disenfranchised communities. That has been something that has brought me immense joy. And so I always tell the kiddos when I'm at, the parks or the schools, and they're like, what do you do? You seem like you're the boss, but what do you do? I'm like, just boring adult stuff. But those moments, when they're there, I have the pictures and we are, working on grants tirelessly. That's that's the work that provides me the joy, or it leads to the joy and the passion that I have. So thank you.
That was great. Thank you all for sharing your insight on that. We are now going to begin the Q&A portion of our panel. Please put any questions you have in the chat or put an asterisk if you would like to be called on to say the question yourself to the panelists. If you have any specific questions for a panelist, please write their name so we know who it is directed towards. I will now begin the Q&A portion of our panel. Okay, so our first question is for Christina G. It is from Cam. What is it like to work your way up to the position you are in now? What sorts of challenges did you have to overcome, whether it was work or in your personal life, to achieve your goals?
Great question. So I'm in a male-dominated industry. Aerospace and defense predominantly. You look at our DE&I metrics, and we have a lot of work to do as it relates to promoting women, people of color in the workplace. And we're doing great things at RTX. It is a focus. We have some amazing leaders. But when I started in 2004, and I think back to when my first day in our Andover facility, which is a manufacturing facility, I walked in and I felt very out of place. I remember just looking around going, what am I doing here? And it was hard. It was hard to find my fit and build the network, but that's really where my focus went, right? It was learning the technical skills of the job, which is obviously very critical. But I can say my career progression, I put a lot of merit in that, in the network that I built and the time that I took to do that. And I think, Judy, you hit on that a little bit, and kind of getting to know people. You have to reach out, and you have to foster that. I moved around a lot too. And when I say I moved around a lot, the Raytheon is a geographically dispersed business. It's huge, and it's all over the country, and it's in other countries as well. I always stayed in Massachusetts as my main point of, this is where I lived, but I traveled everywhere. I took long-term assignments, anywhere from Alabama to Paris, France. I've done work in UAE. I basically was in UAE for off and on for a year. And I took on those challenges. And it was always, that was identified and recognized by leaders in the business. If people threw something at me, I took advantage of it. And if I felt I had become comfortable, that's when I went and said to my manager or my boss, hey, I'm ready for the next thing. Can you give me the next challenge? And that's what gets you, in a business of my size, that's how you get recognized. That's how your name gets remembered. And I'll be honest, I am Christina Gandolfo. I got married. I'm married to another Raytheoner. I didn't change my name for the reason of that recognition, right? And I say that because I'm very proud of what I've done as Christina Gandolfo. And when I got married, I had this identity crisis at that point. Like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna go. I've married another Raytheon person. They're gonna look my name up and they're gonna see his name too. And I worked for this, and I'm not doing it. And not that that's changed anything, but that was an interesting kind of that's been an interesting element to my life in the last 10 years. I have 2 young children. I have a big job. I have about 120 people that work for me right now, across the business. We're responsible for, probably upwards of $9 billion of proposals that go out of the business on an annual basis. $9 billion. Did I say billion or million? So it's a lot of responsibility, and managing that takes a lot of time and energy. But again, I go back to my network and having the ability to say to my boss, who's the CFO, hey, I've got to take my daughter to ballet today. I'm going to put this on hold. I'll come back to it. And there's a lot of respect for that. It's changed over the last 20 years, but it's part of that getting more women, more women in leadership positions, and understanding some of the things that we face that might be different than a man, right? So.
That was great. Thank you. And Fayo, if you wanted to say your question.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. So I absolutely loved this whole panel. Thank you so much to our panelists. And I say this because I'm a sophomore, and when I was younger and people would ask me what I wanted to be, I did not know. Like my brother, he's a mechatronics major, so he was like, I want to go into tech. My sister, who's 4 years younger than me, she knows that she wants to be a nurse. And then they're like, oh, Fayo, like, what do you want to do? Like, I genuinely don't know. And I think over the years, I've sort of carried this weight on my back. Just the fact that I just don't know what I want to do. Like after college, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think there has been a light in the situation, because the fact that I'm undecided in a lot of situations, I find myself not having a limit to opportunity. So I'm open to so many things. I don't mind working in a bank right now. I don't mind working merchandise. I would do anything, as I don't like have a specific role that I'm aiming for. So thank you so much, I would say again, for being so vulnerable and sharing all your stories. But I do want to ask, there are some days where I'm in a group, a midst of people, and they all have this like certain mindset that they know what they want to do. They look super focused, and I'm just like on the sidelines. I'm like, okay, I'm not too sure how to contribute in this like conversation, because again, I'm not sure what my life would be after college. So what happens when you're in that situation and you start to doubt yourself again? Like, okay, I'm undecided. I'm not sure what I want to do. How do you regain your focus and just get back up and just start to work hard again?
I would love to answer that question. So I think it's great when you're not decided. I think it's a time to, one, think for yourself who you're becoming. Look back and see how, and celebrate what it took you to get where you are. And have alone time to process that out. I think it's really important. I think we don't give ourselves enough time, and there's so much pressure asking that question. And even I was 50 years old and everyone's asking me, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, stop asking me the question. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it turned out to be more terrific than I ever thought it could be. And I look back at every single job I took, never knowing what the next job was going to be. I wasn't in a corporate arena like Christina. I thought I was going to be. But that isn't what my path happened. And every single job, and I changed every 3 years. I mean, it just was the way it was for me, because I craved new information. I craved something new and exciting and different. So I say to you, take a step, any step, doesn't matter what the step is, and rule in and rule out. Is this feeding my soul? Is this not? Should I develop another skill because now I've been exposed to something that I didn't know? And I'm just saying this because this can happen your entire life. So in my company, I started doing this work, creating these career pathways, and I realized I did not know enough about diversity, equity, and inclusion to speak confidently wherever I was in my starting point. So I went and have taken course after course so that I can be certified, so I can get a technical skill. So don't ever be afraid of not knowing where you are right now. It's the perfect place for you. So that's what I would say to you. And embrace it. Embrace it. Don't be afraid of it.
I just wanted to add on real quick. Thank you for sharing that, Judy. I would say in my job, I'm able to go to a lot of PD sessions and make my schedule now. And when I was in school, I took it seriously. I did all my homework, did all the readings, participated, sat at the front of my classes because UMass is big, right? It's huge. And so I encourage you wherever you're at, whichever space you're in, be that sponge. Because I remember my friend who had told me like he has a master's and I don't, because I didn't want to spend money on something I'm not sure if it's what I wanted to do. And so he says, I can't use my master's because I guess he was doing a lot of like looking over to the side on other people's papers. And so I just encourage folks to learn and take advantage of the spaces that you're in. When I moved back to Worcester from Boston, because I was like, okay, this is now where I'm going to be. I want to start my family. I've been this principal. And I was transitioning from that job. I was like, I don't know, even though this is my hometown where I was born, I don't know the youth justice scene. And so I started as a youth worker at the age of 27 years old. And I gained the knowledge, went to all the networking events, stayed out late nights to be at those spaces and learn people's faces and what they do in the community. Moved over to Girls Inc. as like a director there for after school, an interim director, multiple directors, wasn't getting compensated, but then I moved into the city as the next opportunity. And so this happened because I'm a person willing to learn and grow in the spaces that I'm in. So just be open to doing that as well.
I think the only thing I would add as well is every experience builds the tools in your toolbox. And so it's not so much about where are you going with it, it's what are you going to do with it. And so I think every experience gives you something else to weave into that larger tapestry of your expertise. And a lot of people are so single-minded, they can think in one way. When you're approaching things without that construct, you're able to see how things connect across areas. And it's that type of skill set that's really needed these days. So I think you're really just keep reminding yourself of that. You're going to be who can translate across these wonderful people who are doing great things, but you are bringing a different viewpoint to that and bringing a much more open mind.
That was great. I wish we could all sit here for another 2 hours and talk more about it, because I think it's a topic that we all can kind of resonate with. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our Q&A. So thank you so much for participating in the chat and our panelists for all of your great responses. The panelists now have the opportunity, if you just want to finish up on anything, but I think we wrapped it up quite nicely. So I'll invite a WOI team member to unmute and explain our next steps. Thank you, everyone.
Sure. So that would be me. Hi, everyone. Again, good afternoon. My name is, I hope you're all having a spectacular time at the conference so far, because I know it's been a very insightful day for me so far. But my name is Fayo Bumi Ulushala Falunu, but you can call me Fayo. I am a sophomore, double majoring in marketing and communications with a minor in psychology. And I currently serve as a member of the Marketing and Communication Planning Committee for the 2022 Virtual Women of Isenberg Conference. And it's an honor to be in the midst of such remarkable women who strive to make a change wherever they go. I'd like to thank Christina G, Christina R, Letitia, and Judy for an amazing and insightful speech that they've shared with us throughout the whole panel. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, and we really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to speak with us and just being your authentic selves. Again, myself, the team, and all our attendees say thank you. I'd also like to give a special shout out to our student ambassador, Alexandra, for moderating such a successful panel. You did amazing, so thank you so much for that. And above all, thank you to everyone in this room who decided to give WOI part of your Saturday to learn, grow, and connect with this community. We're so honored to have you, and we hope you take new advice and information with you as you head back to school or careers on Monday. These past 2 years have been nothing short of unpredictable, but something that has stayed strong is this community. Without fail, you have continued to show up for our virtual events, transitioned seamlessly with us, even when we had to change plans from in-person to virtual, interacted on social media, and so much more. We want to give a final shout out to every group involved with making this day happen, and especially want to congratulate our student ambassadors, community council, and the WOI planning team for an event well done. Please be sure to keep an eye out for the post-event survey on the app and through email, as well as posted pictures from today's event. I hope everyone made new connections today, and please do not be afraid to reach out to folks on LinkedIn or email to keep this community ever growing. Lastly, we want to announce the date, hopefully in person, of our 2023 Women of Isenberg Conference. So the 10th annual Women of Isenberg Conference will be held on Saturday, February 25th, 2023. Again, hopefully in person. So make sure to save that date, as you do not want to miss it. You can decide to hop off the call, but if you do want to go back to the main room and chat with more people, you 100% can. But have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everyone.